Okay, well, we're going to get started. I'd like to first thank everybody for joining us today in terms of helping you understand the year-end closing process and the steps and good housekeeping items to be aware of. My name is Lonnie Holmes, and I am a business solutions consultant here with CR Group. So we're going to walk you through your year-end closing process today and get you familiar with what you need to do and some of the benefits and things you can cover during your year-end closing process. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's presentation will be recorded and it will be sent out later this week, so you can view it over and over and over again if you like. Keep an eye out for that. Also, we encourage you to ask questions, so please submit them in the GoToWebinar panel, and I will do my best to get to them by the end of today's presentation. The key items we're going to cover today are why and when we need to close our fiscal year in GP, how we close subledger information and the benefits of doing so, some important notes for those using analytical accounting, and finally the steps we should take and how we close the fiscal year. So why do we close our fiscal years in GP? Well, first and foremost, we need to be able to close our profit and loss accounts to the appropriate retained earnings accounts in your balance sheet, and to also allow opening balances for your balance sheet accounts to be rolled forward to the subsequent year. You can also close subledgers, and there are many reports and metrics that track date-sensitive and year-to-date information. So all of these counters need to be reset. So when should I close my fiscal year? A common misconception among clients is that you can't close your year, or you shouldn't close your year until your audit is complete. And I'm sure it is true for most people on the call today that your audit doesn't happen until months after your fiscal year end is completed. In the meantime, you have other periods in the subsequent year that transactions will need to be posted for, not to mention you still have month-end closing processes and reconciliations to be completed for those periods as well. You can only do these reconciliations and closings if you have balance sheet accounts with opening balances, which will only appear when the prior year has been closed. The good news is you don't have to wait. You can actually close your fiscal year at any time. Because Dynamics GP allows you to post entries back one historical year, you can post your adjusting entries after the fact. So once you've posted all of your year-end entries, you can go ahead and close your fiscal year and make adjusting entries later. While GP will only allow you to post entries to one historical year, the good news is in GP version 2013 R2, Microsoft introduced a new feature that allows you to reopen a closed year. So you can make adjustments to other prior years as well. This feature is available in all versions issued since, which includes GP 2015, 2015 R2, 2016, and 2016 R2. You don't need to do anything special when entering a transaction to a prior period, but there are a couple of things you'll want to check before you complete the entry. You'll need to ensure that the financial module is open for the period you want to post to. This would usually be the final period of your fiscal year. You also need to make sure that your general ledger setup allows you to post to history. You'll find the instructions to find these windows in the slide. You would then input your entry exactly the same way you would any journal entry. And when you post the transaction, you'll notice on the journal entry report that the system automatically creates some additional lines. These lines are there to either adjust your retained earnings account to close out the amounts posted to a P&L account, or to adjust the opening balance of any balance sheet accounts that are part of the entry. Once your adjusting entries are complete, you may want to go back to the fiscal periods window and close the open periods for the fiscal year to make sure no one posts any entries to the history year inadvertently. Closing all your subledgers, while not a required exercise to close your fiscal year, has some benefits in terms of date-sensitive information. We would recommend that if you are going to close your subledgers, you do so in the following order: payroll, inventory, receivables, payables, fixed assets, and finally your general ledger. You would want to close your subledgers one at a time as soon as the steps listed are completed. All transactions for that subledger should be entered and posted for all periods in the fiscal year. You should have completed the month-end process and reconciled your subledger to your general ledger control accounts. I would print a historical age trial balance for these modules that would require it. I would then make sure in the fiscal period setup window to close this module for all periods in the fiscal year. Once completed, before entering any information for the new year, run the year-end close process for that module through routines, year-end close. This is a sample list of fields that would be updated through the year-end close process for subledgers. This is the receivables example, so that you can inquire about customer information on a year-to-date level for a current year, but also as well LTD information, life-to-date information. If this year-end process is not completed by the subledger, then this information is not properly updated, and we'll just continue to roll balances as part of the year-to-date totals. For those of you on the call using analytical accounting, it is very important to note that there are some additional components required that need to be completed by our team here. So please contact our support team to make arrangements to have us assist you with closing AA. You can reach us by email at mbssupport@crgroup.com. The steps that you should follow when closing your fiscal year would include ensuring that all subledger transactions are posted and month-end closing procedures such as reconciliations are all complete. Any final adjusting entries prior to your audit should be posted to the general ledger. One of the most common support calls we receive during the year-end closing process for clients is that a P&L account did not close out to the retained earnings properly. In each case, this is due to the fact that the account was set up with the incorrect posting type. To avoid this, we would recommend that you run a smart list of your entire chart of accounts and validate that your posting type for all accounts is correct, meaning all balance sheet accounts have a balance sheet posting type and that all profit and loss accounts are marked with the profit and loss posting type. If any are incorrect, make sure to correct this in the accounts maintenance card. Print a complete trial balance report for the full year so you can make sure after closing that the results are the same. Print your year-end financial statements so that you can validate the data. And in the fiscal period setup window, you will need to open a new fiscal year for the coming reporting year. You will absolutely want to ensure that your IT team takes a backup of the database prior to the closing your year. And then finally, you can close your fiscal year. When all steps are completed and you're ready to close the year, you will need to make sure that all of your users are logged out of GP, as they will not be permitted to be in the system during the closing process. From the Financial Routines area, open the year-end closing window and select the options available on the window along with verify that the retained earnings account listed by default is correct. Click the Close Year button and the progress bar will move along so you can see the status of the closing. Depending on your business and volume of accounts and the volume of transactions, the closing process can take up to a couple of hours. Please continue to let it run uninterrupted. If you interrupt this process, it could cause issues and your year may not close correctly. Some of the features that you'll notice on the year-end closing window or checkboxes are some features that you need to select. The first being the Remove Unused Segment Numbers box. If you'd like to remove any unused segments that were created, whether it be inadvertent throughout the year or created and then never used, you can click this button so that they'll be deleted. If you check the Maintain Inactive Accounts box, it allows you to keep inactive accounts within the system to use during trial balance validation. In most cases, you probably will want to keep this information. When you select that option, another box will open up that allows you to only keep inactive accounts with budget amounts tied to them or all inactive accounts. Make sure you select the appropriate one for your business before closing your year. You'll also notice on this window that there's a reverse historical year button. This is what we spoke of a little earlier, in that if you needed to go back and reopen a prior year, you would do so from this window by clicking the reverse historical year. The system will open one historical year at a time. So if you are closing your 2017 year or 2016 year and realize that you still have to post adjusting entries to 2015, you can reopen 2016 and then post entries to one historical closed year. You can continue to reverse the historical year closing by clicking this button, and it will continue to open your prior years one at a time. Once the process has been completed, a journal entry report will automatically generate. I would suggest printing or saving as a PDF so that you can validate the results. The journal entry should tie out to the income or loss on your income statement. You will also want to print a new trial balance report for the closed year and the new fiscal year you just opened to ensure that your balances are correct between them and that all of your P&L accounts have an opening balance of 0. If there are any reconciliation differences, then you may need to restore your backup and run the process again. In the event that that happens, prior to closing your year, we would suggest you contacting our support team to maybe troubleshoot the reasons why your year didn't close correctly. Please note that it is very important that no entries or work is done in the system until all reports and data are verified. Because if there are any issues and you have to restore the backup, that data entered will be lost. So that kind of concludes the steps in terms of your closing process. If you have any questions, now would be a great opportunity for you to ask us some questions about your year-end close and the process that you'll have to follow when you reach your fiscal year-end this year, which I'm sure for many will be sometime in December and January, and for some others that fall around the March 31st area will be coming kind of in the first quarter of 2017. So we have a question regarding fixed assets. So there's a question that says, any particular attention required for fixed assets? Nothing in particular in that you should make sure all of your fixed assets have been added to your subledgers and reconcile out any of your clearing accounts to make sure that all of those assets have been added and reconciled to your general ledger. You'll want to make sure all of your depreciation has been run and posted to your GL prior to closing your subledger to push forward your year-to-date balances into life-to-date for your fixed assets. So another question is, once we close the year, can we still post 2016 batches to the year end? And the answer is yes. So you can still create batches that are for your prior year and post them just the same in general ledger as you would if you were doing 2017 or any other journal entries. Please note, though, you'll want to make sure that we're only talking about general ledger batches, as you wouldn't want to be posting subledger information after you've reconciled and closed your subledgers. So another question is, it's actually a great question, in that when you reverse your historical year and post your adjusting entries, do you need to close the year again? And the answer is yes. So as soon as you've posted the entries for the history year that you need done, you would need to go back to the year-end closing window and click Close Year again in order to update your retained earnings accounts and your opening balances in your balance sheet accounts for that year again. And if you're opening multiple years, you'll have to run that process multiple times to close all of the years that should be closed for your prior years. So there's a question about Canadian payroll and if it needs to be closed at the same time as the general ledger or before. Generally speaking, my understanding of the Canadian payroll process as a subledger is it should technically be closed sometime after your last pay run for the year and your first pay run of the subsequent year. So you need to make sure that you've closed out your 2016 year for payroll based on a calendar year for T4 purposes, as well as the tax year-end update table. Do we have any other questions out there from anybody out there? Any questions at all? Don't be afraid to ask. There are no stupid questions, only smart questions. Okay, well, there doesn't appear to be any other questions at this time. However, with that said, if you do have some follow-up questions at any time later that you think of that you wish you would have asked today, feel free to reach out to our team at any time, and we're more than happy to assist you during your year-end close process and answer any questions you might have about that. So happy year-end closing and happy audit.